Good morning and welcome to the October 25th, 2023 meeting of the Utah Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining. As normal, we will start with a briefing session and I will turn the time over to Director Baza.
Thank you, Chair Borden, and welcome to you and the other board members to your monthly meeting here in Salt Lake City. I'm John Baza. I'm the Director of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. Our briefing this morning is going to involve an external party who hopefully is connected remotely. I need to ask, is Bill Keach on the line and connected?
I am online and connected.
All right, great. Good to see you, Bill. Well, I'm going to introduce
Thank you,
Bill
John.
for the first item on our briefing this morning. As you know, we've been trying to get other agencies to come in and talk about their responsibilities and how they may tie into the duties of this board. And last month we had School and Institutional Trust Lands in to provide a briefing. This month it's going to be the Utah Geological Survey. And Bill Keach is familiar to a few of us. I think we're all well acquainted with him either by personal knowledge or by his amazing reputation as a geoscientist. He is extremely intelligent. He's been on the faculty of both University of Utah and BYU. He has been connected with the Energy and Geoscience Institute in the past. He's had a career with Landmark Graphics Corporation, which those of you who have been around in the sciences probably recognize that corporation name. But he's now the director of the Utah Geological Survey, and as such, he is also the Utah State Geologist. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Bill, and he's going to give us a bit of UGS 101 this morning.
Good morning. So I'm going to share my screen, I believe. Let's see here. Oh, window. There we go. So can you see that? Is that displaying on your end?
It's coming up now.
Okay, good. So this is a version, and John, if I go too long, feel free to just say, hey, Bill, stop.
Bill, you have
It's
as
not
much
hard for me
time
to
as you want to take this morning.
Okay. And tell me, put it, if the board gets tired, they can tell me to stop as well. I'm in Spokane, Washington, where it's snowing this morning. Looking out my hotel window, and it is snowing pretty hard. So winter is about to hit us. So this is a version of talk I've given a couple places, but I often say, what do people think we do at the Utah Geological Survey? And I get a lot of different answers. The biggest one I often get is you make maps, but we do a lot more than that. And so we'll look kind of like at a day in life of a UGS geologist. And if you've got questions, I'm not sure how to take them. John, do you want me to take questions at the end, or do you want me to take them during the meeting?
Well, there might be a question or two that'll pop up during the presentation, but I think
Okay,
we've
just let me
also
know.
got time at the end.
Okay, thank you. Just make sure we handle it right. So kind of in general, we cover mineral and energy resources across the state in terms of identifying where they are and what they might mean to us, groundwater and mapping of surface waters, hazards mapping, landslides, earthquakes. But a lot of people come to Utah to see the geology. So we have a big impact on recreation and tourism. So in terms of what we do, part of it is our outreach. Every year we meet with the legislature. We're out on the salt flats. We're out in the groundwater. If a big boulder falls down a hillside and lands in your front yard like it did in Mapleton a few years ago, we're there to do that. The picture in the lower right is my board, the Utah Geological Survey Board, and you folks may recognize some of those people. So geologic mapping consists of literally getting out in the field a lot. There's also a fair amount of computer work, but we have the statutory obligation to map the state of Utah. We get funding from the U.S. Geological Survey to help us with that. It typically comes in at a match of 50-50. We put up $1, they put up $1, sort of a thing. And we make maps that look like this. For some people, that may not mean anything. For geologists and some engineers, you're going to get some of this. The important takeaway here is that the maps help us identify where resources are. And these maps often turn into derivative maps. So if we make a map of Salt Lake County, we'll look at the rock types and we can turn that into a landslide susceptibility map. We can also turn it into where we might find gravel resources or other aggregates. And a lot of that's going to be based on rock type. So one map turns into another, which can turn into another, which then has public use. All of our maps now at the Utah Geological Survey are online. We have an interactive portal, and if you go in there, you can find maps of geology, of hazards, landslides, or the active faults. But it's all there to get and understand. And the people that use this, we have a lot of consultants in the state that use these maps, a lot of other state agencies. The private sector uses them as well. So there's a broad spectrum of users that chase our data. Part of our mapping group is our paleontology. And I don't know how many of you know Jim Kirkland. He's there in the middle, but I mean, paleontologists lay on the ground and get up close and personal with those rocks. Jim's been the state paleontologist for a long time. Utah is one of the largest in-ground collections of dinosaurs in the world. And many of you may have saw the news last week. 150,000 pounds of dinosaur bones were confiscated because people are trying to steal them from us, which is an amazing thing. But we have some amazing resources. At Utah Geological Survey, we have the responsibility to take care of dinosaur fossils that are located on state-owned lands. That's where our responsibility begins and ends. The feds control the resources on their lands. One of the things we collected some years ago was what we refer to internally as the mega block. It's about 18,000 pounds of Utah raptor fossils, mixed in with a few others. We believe, there's estimates of anywhere from maybe 10 to 15 different Utah individuals that are preserved in this block. It was found out near Moab by a college student, and it now sits in our warehouse out at the Core Center. So if you ever want to come out to our Core Center, we can give you and show you what this looks like. But it's got talons and you got the teeth, and it's a pretty cool block of rock that we're slowly starting to take apart. And that's what it looks like there out of its cask. And you can see some examples of those little jawbones. A number of the specimens in here, they believe, are juveniles. So they're pretty small. And this is where we have it out at the Core Center. And with microscopes, we slowly take it apart. Hazards is a big area. This particular year, it's been a really big deal with all the landslides in the state. I just gave a talk up here in Spokane yesterday about we visited personally over 200 landslides in Utah this spring. But we investigate, where you have, this is a landslide here where the ground is broken away. We dig trenches in the ground like you see down here in the lower right, and an up close picture up in the upper left. And we can map out where the individual faults or earthquakes occurred along the Wasatch Fault. So we'll dig a trench across it. We'll look at the offset, and we can date the rocks. And when you hear estimates of how long it's been since a big earthquake, it's from digging these type of trenches and dating across the faults there, the ages of the rocks, and we can tell you, have a really good idea when that last big earthquake occurred. We also generate reports across the state on geologic hazards in all kinds of places. This particular example here is from down in the Glen Canyon area. And We've identified all the different hazards such as rock falls, landslides, and such. It helps planners in the national parks figure out where they should keep people away from, areas they need to protect, that sort of thing. Another big deal that we did, and I just gave a report 2 weeks ago to the state legislature, was we got the legislature to fund, could we implement an earthquake early warning system in Utah? And what drove this was, we had the Magna earthquake, but California, Oregon, and Washington have implemented something called Shake Alert. And they spent about $200 million to develop it, working with the U.S. Geological Survey, and put that in place. So the real question was, since about 2 million people live literally on top of the Wasatch Fault Zone, would it be feasible to have one in Utah or not? And the bottom line is the answer was yes. It could be possible. If you had a big earthquake in Brigham City, like a magnitude 7, you'd have almost 17 seconds of notice in the Salt Lake Valley, which would be plenty of time to send some alerts to people, but probably more importantly, to send notices to mechanical devices like the front runner, get the front runner to stop, to the refineries, to major pipelines for gas and water, to shut valves so that we can preserve our infrastructure before it goes bad. I say even as simple as opening the garage doors on the fire station before the damage comes. That way, 'cause in a lot of places, it gets damaged, you can't get the emergency vehicles out. So we could have mechanical alerts that help us with those sorts of things. And I'm going to back up on that. There's a big article this morning on KSL about this very thing, if you want to go see it. I'll give you a little video here. So here's a landslide, place called Cove Canyon. You can see all the breaks across here, but the whole thing's sliding down. Road damage up in Snowbird, Riverdale a few years ago. The little yellow dots over here represent locations that we monitor on an active basis that are active landslides. We also do a lot of work with energy and minerals. This is where we have a lot of overlap with oil, gas, and mining. We're out in the Great Salt Lake, and these pictures here. Sorry, what? Oh, I thought someone was talking. Sorry. Here, Elliot is taking a GoPro camera and imaging the bottom of the Great Salt Lake, trying to see where we're at saturation because salt crystals will start to grow down there. So we're pretty active out in the field for everything with energy and minerals. We generally output a report, again, Utah's energy landscape, that helps us understand where all the energy resources are. Mike Vandenberg generally authors this report for the state every couple of years. A report that we commissioned, that was commissioned by the legislature, that we partnered with Utah State University, was to understand the economic impact of Utah's energy and mining industries on the state. And that was delivered a year ago. The highlight was that about 10% of Utah's economy, which is more than tourism, comes from energy and mining. And we contributed about 20% of the taxes. That's a big deal. But now we have it quantified and it's out there in the public for the public and the legislature and other agencies to see. We work closely with SITLA and the U.S. Geological Survey on a number of reports. We've put out 2 critical minerals reports, where they are in the state and what we think the potentials are for all of them. We updated a couple of years ago after the federal government changed their definition of a critical mineral. We updated that one. We have another report on basic and precious metals across the state. Again, this affects things that the OGM might be interested in. One I always like to point out is how many people know what indium is, and since I'm not in the room, I can't see you. A lot of people don't know what it is, but everybody probably has one in their pocket today, and that's the cell phone. Indium is a clear metal that's thin that conducts electricity, and so it's in your touch screen on your phones. The U.S. Geological Survey has, through the federal government, is funding something called Earth MRI, which is a mapping resources initiative. The idea here is that once we came out through the pandemic and we have these perception that we need certain minerals to do certain things, and that many of them are coming from overseas. So there's been funding to the states to identify where those resources might be had in the U.S. So that if we need to become dependent on our resources rather than some external ones, we know where they are. So we're trying to get out ahead of the game, and we have a number of funded projects in Utah on mineral resource mapping resources initiative. So let's see, I'm going to go back to this one. One of the ones, I can't remember if I have a slide here or not, but was to much of the West Desert had never had LIDAR, which is imaging resolution of topography changes, nor airborne geophysical data. And so through Earth MRI, they've paid for, we have basically in the whole western part of the state for both LIDAR and others to be done so we can have a good sense of what might be out there. Carbon sequestration is another area. I know that Oil, Gas, and Mine is working on primacy for Class 6 wells. And related to that, we've got a number of funding projects to identify where we can inject carbons in or CO2 in the subsurface. One project that I point out here that's funded by the Department of Energy is Iron Mountain, where they're mining it, but their ore then goes into a train car and it gets shipped to China to get processed and comes back. The thought here is if we could process it here, we could, there's byproducts that people don't want, but we could capture the CO2 and we could re-inject it there locally. So we're working with the owners of the mining company. We're working with the Department of Energy to identify a process where we could keep that here in country. Another part, a big aspect of what we do, this is probably our fastest growing program in the Utah Geological Survey, and that's groundwater and wetlands. With so many issues related to water, both a lack of and too much this last year, groundwater has become a big deal. We figure out how much water we have in each area. So we do water budget studies. The picture on the right comes from Ogden Valley, where we were asked to quantify what is the recharge and how much is being consumed each year. Because under state law in water rights, you have to have a balance. You can't mine water. Meaning, if you take out more water than is recharged every year, we can't do that. But you can't make those decisions until you know what those balances are. So aquifer studies, a couple we finished in the last year in Goshen Valley, another one eastern Duchesne County. These reports then go to the counties and to the state to help better manage water usage. Wetlands is another area that's growing quickly with the disappearance of some of the wetlands along the Great Salt Lake. A lot of people are trying to figure out what can we do with wetlands and how do we better protect them and how do we better manage them. And so each of these yellow dots represent where there's impacts happening to our wetlands across the state. So we have a wetlands coordinator, and she and her group have been doing a great job identifying wetlands. One of the things that the legislature asked our wetlands group to do was to look at something that's known as an in lieu fee program. And the idea behind an in lieu fee program is that a lot of times if you have 10 acres that you want to develop and you've got a little quarter acre that's got a little bit of wetland on it, under current federal laws, you have to do something to mitigate the impact on that little spot. But what in lieu fee program says, why don't we could arrange to work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to pay a fee to a state fund, and then we could decide which wetlands we want to focus a bigger chunk of funding towards. So we did a report, delivered it, and there's efforts now afoot to create an in lieu fee program in Utah to help mitigate, and we could focus on bigger projects. I put this one in here. Groundwater and groundwater subsidence has become a big issue in certain parts of our state. Many of you may be familiar with ENIC, but some of you may not be. And I got a little drone video here that I shot, but those fissures there are due to groundwater withdrawal causing subsidence. And so the groundwater table in the ENIC area has dropped over 100 feet. And so these large fissures have opened up in the last 10 years. This is in the last 5 years here. And it's causing a lot of damage. In places, though, there's like 4-foot escarpments because of the groundwater subsidence. So we collect a lot of data at the Utah Geological Survey. And a couple of years ago, we formed a data management program. And these are the folks that just make sure that everything we have is available to the public through online publications. I mentioned earlier, we have a map portal, but we've got a wetlands application. We got a groundwater monitoring. We've been furiously trying to capture all the historical aerial imagery to convert it to digital format. And we have a very large library. If you want to know what an area looked like back in 1957, you can probably find it on our web pages now. We also do some things that just help the public interest. We have a number of web pages. If you want to go look at cool geologic sites and you want to know how to get there, there's about 63 different geosites now across the state. And if you want to go find it and go look at it, there's pictures there of what you'll see and how to get there. We output our walk calendar guide this last year, where if you want to go look for agates, or you want to go look for trilobites, you want to go look for geodes, one of these guides and apps will tell you where they are, what you need to do, and how to get there. It's kind of fun to go do those. A lot of people are using these now. So I already mentioned this one, so I'll skip over that. We also host, 2 weeks ago, we hosted what's called Earth Science Week. And between 600 and 700 4th and 5th graders come to the DNR building out to our core center every fall. And we have stations set up for, panning for gold or a stream table where you can make a river channel and you can put a bridge in and then make it rain and see what happens. Lectures on fossils and on minerals. And kids love this. I mean, like I said, we have a ton of kids. I love this comment by Gabe. Thank you for one of the best days in my life. That's pretty good impact for a 4th grader, I think. So we have a lot of fun with that. So we like to say that it's fun. Partnered with, Holly's sitting there in the back of the room, and we even get John Boz has been very kind to share her time with us as our public information officer. But we have a whole group that she works with for geologic information and outreach. And these people are the ones that get out to the schools. They host these workshops. They communicate with the public. Holly provides good guidance for us on those things. So we get out to all these things and we share information with the public. At the Utah Geological Survey, we do about 100 publications a year, either in the form of maps or abstracts, and every one of them gets a rigorous review before it gets out to the public. So again, just examples of things that we do, whether it's a workshop on landslides or earthquakes or teaching schools. Many of you have gotten our calendars. I say it's the best calendar in the state. They're photographs by our folks. It's an internal competition every year. We ask for submissions and you get about 200 of them, and a committee of employees selects the best ones. And every year that committee changes. We also have a bookstore. If you've not been to it, it's down on it's just right around the corner from you on the first floor. It's the only map store in the state now. All the other businesses have shut down that were dedicated solely to maps. But there's all kinds of good looking maps if you want. A lot of hunters come and get their permits, and then they come over and ask us, I need a map for that area. And we have the ability to make custom maps now to print them out. And we can even print them on waterproof paper. So here's what we do. We do outreach, we do hazards, energy and minerals, groundwater, wetlands. We map the state and we manage all that data. And I think with that, I'm done. Any questions?
Gosh, Bill, that was great. One of the things I would mention as we're wrapping up your presentation is that a couple of months ago, the board might remember that Ammon McDonald was in here providing an invitation for you to go out to visit him in the Core Center. That's where he's working now. He's back to being an employee of UGS. But Ammon would enjoy the opportunity to have any of you out there. And, you know, we talk about the rocks in our board meetings, in our spacing hearings and things like that. But going out to the Core Center is an opportunity to actually see the rocks. So if any of you are interested, it's an easy walk. You can do it on a day like today when it's a short board meeting. And Ammon would love to be able to show you around and whatever's out there.
Yeah, and I would add to that the Core Center is a resource that just about every company in Utah that does exploration or drilling for oil and gas and or mining come to. You know, when a new operator takes over out there in the basin, we tend to get a big influx of they bring their people to our Core Center. We have about 400,000 linear feet of core. It's a lot of core, plus a lot more cuttings, things that people use looking for oil, gas, and mining out there. So, and Ammon would love to see you. He's a good guy. He stole him back from John.
Board, any questions on the, yes?
So where is indium mined at? We're the only place in the U.S. that has it. Where's that at?
They're not mining it actively yet, but out in the Spore Mountain area.
So we just have the resource. We're not. Okay.
We have the resource, but we're not actively mining much of it right now. We do have it. Most of it comes from overseas.
What is the genesis of the indium deposit out there? How did it form?
Spore Mountain was related to a big plutonic grenade intrusion. And so you get a lot of superheated fluids that leach the minerals out and then deposit them in veins out there.
Thanks. Did you have a question?
Bill, several years ago, there was in the news quite a bit of controversy about water resources between Nevada and Utah. And I know the UGS, at that time, the legislature funded them to monitor the withdrawal of the water. Is that still an ongoing project in western Utah?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're still out there doing that. There's talk at times to kind of slow down the funding for the monitoring of that. We kind of stick our hands in there and say, wait a minute, we want to keep monitoring this, keeping it about. Yeah, we're still doing it. Nothing has been cut back at this point. It's a regular visit of our groundwater folks.
I have a quick question for you too. You know, you mentioned the different agencies, both dam safety and water rights, and they always, I guess, do you provide much technical expertise to both of those divisions or either one of them?
We've not done a lot with the dam safety folks. But we share if they need us to do it. We do a lot with water resources and water rights. They engage us. So like I'll give you an example on the water side. Cedar City area growth is really fast down there. They were trying to figure out how to manage the groundwater because the water tables are dropping. So over a multi-year period, our folks went down there and monitored recharge and discharge. I mean, how much is turned out they're pumping out 28,000 acre feet of water every year, but the recharge is only 21,000. People own water rights to 40,000. So now that information then goes back to water rights, which then can use that information to determine how to adjudicate that problem. They're armed with information, and so that's where it becomes helpful.
Did all the moisture last winter do significant recharge? Did you see a lot of recharge from that?
In some areas, yes. It depends on how long it takes the water to get to the aquifer, the aquifer. We've got some places where the water, like out at the on the west side of the Bonneville Salt Flats, the alluvial aquifers, the water in those alluvial fans are about 10,000 years old. So the recharge is going to help, but it might take 10,000 years before it comes down to see us. But there are a number of places where, it moves through much quicker and the recharge, but we're not going to, part of the problem is if we over pump, like down in the Enoch area where you drop the water table 100 feet and then the ground collapses, collapse the pore space and you can never recharge that because you lost that porosity and that. So yes, the rain helped with recharge. It helped fill our reservoirs. I wouldn't say that all of the aquifers have been fully recharged yet. That'll take time.
I had a question as well. Could you talk a little bit, how active is the U.S. Geological Survey in Utah, and how do you interact with them? Do you guys coordinate studies and things of that sort?
U.S. Geological Survey is very active in Utah. They have a whole water division where they monitor from a federal level. So a lot of the monitoring wells, we cooperate very closely on sharing our water data. And the USGS also works with water rights and water resources. We do a lot of our geologic mapping we partner with the U.S. Geological Survey on our hazards. If they dig a trench across a fault zone, we'll come visit it. If we dig one, they'll come visit ours. There's a lot of cooperation and we work closely with the folks. There's an office right there in Salt Lake City with the U.S. Geological Survey. We work closely with them. Occasionally, we even hire some of their people. We had an individual who interned with us, got a job with the USGS, and then he kept applying to come work for us. So we finally hired him. But, and it goes the other way too. We've lost people to them. But no, we work very closely. They're very active in the state.
Another one, Bill. Sorry, the more you talk, the more questions I think of. So, hey, as far as, and you probably said it, but as far as the Utah, the UGS, is it fully funded by the state or does it get some federal funding?
The UGS?
Yes.
Our funding is a mix. About 45% comes from general funds. About an equivalent, probably another 40% comes from grants and from other agencies, including the feds. So we get a good chunk of money from the USGS. We have grants from the Department of Energy, Colorado River Authority, where we work on some projects there. We get funding sometimes from other state agencies to do work for them. So we're a mix. We also get some funding from federal mineral lease royalties. Used to account for about a third of our funding. It's probably down to about 15% now because those revenues have dropped off until this last year anyway. So if you may be familiar with those, but any royalty that's paid to the feds on production on federally owned lands goes to the feds, and they kick 50% of it back to the states. And of that 50%, we get about 2.5%.
Any other questions, board? Seeing none, I want to thank you. I know for the geologists on the board, myself included, this was one of the best briefings I've ever had.
We love it. And I would extend that invitation that John did. Come out and see us at the Core Center.
Thank you.
If you're not, I can see you. I can see the room picture. Who has not been out to our Core Center just by raise of hands?
I've never
Okay.
been.
Oh, you've not been there. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You need to go have your Indiana Jones experience.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to drop off. I don't mean to run, but I'm attending meetings here for state licensing boards for geology in Spokane, Washington today.
Well, Bill, thank you for your time. That was an excellent presentation, and I'll be seeing you when you're back in Salt Lake City.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
So board members, we'll go on with our briefing this morning. The next item on our briefing agenda is the proposed board hearing schedule for, it's actually 2024. I think it reads 2023 on the agenda, but it's for next year. I know that Julianne has been in communication with you, presenting you with information on that hearing schedule. I think the only thing out of the ordinary on that schedule is the July hearing, which has been moved by a week in order to shift away from the Pioneer Day holiday. But other than that, I think we would be seeking your consenting vote this morning or agreement, nod of assent, that we could go ahead and publish that calendar as the board schedule for next year.
We have discussed this internally, and I don't think there's any concerns on our part. A lot of us can't plan that far ahead completely anyway, but yes, I think the board approves of the schedule.
Okay, then we'll move ahead with publishing that as needed. We really don't have a lot of other things on the agenda this morning. I would tell you that in the next month, there is no board meeting, but there is a Uinta Basin Oil and Gas Collaborative meeting scheduled for the 8th of November. It's not a Thursday this time, it's a Wednesday. So that comes up in the next couple of weeks. So those of you who are interested and want to attend that, please make plans and save that date. Other than that, I think that's all I have for you this morning. And I'll turn the time back over to you, Mr. Chairman, for other board business.
Thank you. There is one other very important piece of board business that I think we need to acknowledge. Some of you may not know that Director Boz will be retiring soon. And to many of us, he seems like a permanent fixture of the landscape here at the division. A steady rock or mountain you can always count on to be there. And this isn't surprising because John has been the director of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining since May 7th, 2005. That seems like a long time ago in my life, so that's almost 20 years in an important, demanding, often stressful, and sometimes thankless job. Over that same period, the board has had 6 different chairmen. Need I say more on that? I know I can speak for the entire board in thanking John for his years of thoughtful service, for his insight, his calm demeanor under pressure, and his hard work for the state of Utah. I also want to personally thank you for successfully balancing the sometimes conflicting perceptions, desires, and needs of the legislature, the division staff, the board, the public, and most importantly, the real world. And I have to say, these are often aligned, but not always aligned. So I know there's a balancing act there. You will truly be missed, and we wish you a long and very happy retirement. It's well deserved. Could you step around the table and come forward, and we'd like to shake your hand and give you a small token of our appreciation. And I think we could all go down and shake hands as well. I don't know how the logistics will work. And you may recognize this location.
The plaque is coming.
Not a problem. This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the work that the board members do. I mean, we need to thank you because you spend your time essentially on a volunteer basis to do this. But I think the state's well served by your decision. Thank you.
Good service.
I believe the last item for the briefing session is the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to make a comment, if they're here, I'd please ask them to step forward to the microphone and state their name and let us know. Seeing none, I believe we will adjourn until the top of the hour at 10 o'clock and start the docketed items for today. So we'll see everybody in just over 15 minutes. Thank you.